I have been married for exactly 30 days. 30 days of what I thought was the beginning of my life. And today, standing in my own kitchen, holding a folder of screenshots that my brother-in-law just slid across my counter, I realized that the life I thought I was building had never existed at all. My husband of 1 month, and a DNA test that hasn't come back yet, but that everyone in this story already knows the answer to. I want you to stay with me, because this is not a story about a woman who fell apart. This is a story about a woman who went very, very quiet and then went to work. My name is not important. What is important is that I am a practicing barrister. I argue cases for a living. I read contracts the way other people read menus. I notice inconsistencies. I track details. And for the better part of the last year, I had been so completely absorbed in planning a wedding, loving a man, and trusting my family that I had stopped paying attention to the details happening right in front of me. That ends today. Let me take you back to where this actually started, because the betrayal did not begin on my wedding day. It began long before I ever walked down that aisle. My sister, I will call her Dara, is 2 years older than me. We were never the kind of sisters who braided each other's hair and shared secrets under the covers. We were competitive. We loved each other in the complicated, conditional way that siblings sometimes do when they have spent their whole lives being compared. She was the pretty one. I was the smart one. Those labels followed us into adulthood like shadows we couldn't shake. Dara married a man named Paul about 4 years ago. They seemed happy enough. They had a house, a routine, a social life that looked good on the outside. I was her maid of honor. I gave a speech. I meant every word of it. I met my husband, I will call him Marcus, about 3 years ago at a professional conference. He was charming, attentive, and relentlessly interested in me, not in the desperate way that sets off alarm bells, but in the slow, deliberate way that makes a woman feel genuinely seen. He met my family early on. He got along with everyone. He and Dara had a perfectly normal, perfectly cordial relationship, as far as I could tell. He and Paul would sometimes watch football together. We did Christmas dinners as a unit. We were a family. Marcus proposed 18 months into our relationship. I said yes without hesitation. We planned a wedding for the following spring, and I threw myself into it completely. I was genuinely, fully, embarrassingly happy. And somewhere during all of that happiness, I stopped noticing things. I stopped noticing that Marcus and Dara texted each other outside of group family threads. I stopped noticing that he always seemed to know things about her day that I hadn't told him. I stopped noticing that when the 4 of us were together, there was a particular kind of careful distance between them, the kind of distance that people maintain not because they are strangers, but because they know each other far too well. I didn't notice. Because I wasn't looking. Because why would I look? The wedding was in April. It was beautiful. I am not going to let what came after erase the fact that it was a genuinely beautiful day. Dara was my maid of honor. She gave a speech about how much she loved me and how Marcus was the luckiest man alive. She cried real tears. I thought they were happy tears. I know now what they actually were. 6 weeks before our wedding, Dara announced she was pregnant. Everyone was thrilled. Paul seemed over the moon. I bought her a gift basket and took her to lunch and told her she was going to be a wonderful mother. I believed that. I still believed in her then. And that is the part that sits in my chest like a stone, even now. Not the betrayal itself, the belief I had in her, right up until the moment I couldn't anymore. Now here is where I want you to pay very close attention, because this is where the story shifts. Paul, Dara's husband, is a quiet man. He is not dramatic. He is not impulsive. He is the kind of person who takes a long time to process things, and when he finally does, he acts with a precision that I deeply respect. About 3 weeks after my wedding, Paul started noticing things that didn't add up. Timestamps on messages. A phone left unlocked at the wrong moment. A name appearing in a context it had no business appearing in. He didn't confront anyone immediately. He didn't make a scene. He gathered information for 2 weeks. He documented everything. And then, on a Tuesday afternoon, he came to my house, sat across from me at my kitchen table, and opened a folder. The screenshots went back 14 months. 14 months. That means the affair started approximately 6 months before Marcus proposed to me. It means that when he got down on one knee and told me I was his person, he had already been sleeping with my sister for half a year. It means that every dinner we shared as a family, every Christmas photo, every group holiday, all of it was a performance. And both of them were very good at performing. I looked at every single screenshot. I read every message. I did not cry in front of Paul. I made us both tea. And then, very calmly, I told him that I was going to need a few days and that he should not say a word to either of them yet. He looked at me for a long moment and then he nodded. He had waited 2 weeks himself. He could wait a few more days. I want to be honest with you about those few days because they were not what people might expect. I did not spiral. I did not call my best friend and sob over wine. I did not sit outside Marcus's office and wait for him to come out so I could throw things at him. And in the margins of my days, I built a plan so airtight that by the time I was ready to move, there was not a single loose thread either of them could pull. Here is the thing about being a barrister that people outside the legal world don't fully appreciate. We are trained to remove emotion from analysis, not because we don't feel things, but because we know that emotion, when deployed too early, telegraphs your position to the other side. Marcus and Dara were the other side, and I had no intention of letting them know what was coming. The first thing I did was consult with a family law solicitor, someone outside my professional circle, someone with no connection to Marcus or to anyone who knew us. I laid out the facts. 1 month of marriage, no shared property, no commingled finances beyond a joint account that had been open for less than 30 days and contained, at that point, a sum that was almost entirely my contribution. The solicitor confirmed what I already knew. Given the extremely short duration of the marriage, the absence of children, and the financial asymmetry, I earned considerably more than Marcus. I was in an extraordinarily clean position to exit. No spousal support, no protracted asset division. A short marriage with a clear paper trail of who brought what into it. I was not going to lose a single penny to this man. The second thing I did was move my money. I did not drain the joint account in a way that could be characterized as dissipation of marital assets. I simply ensured that my ongoing income was redirected and that the documentation of what I had brought into the marriage was pristine and organized. Every investment account, every savings account, every professional fee payment, dated, labeled, filed. If Marcus thought he was going to use a divorce to extract anything from me, he was about to discover that he had married someone who had already thought of everything he might try. The third thing I did was wait for the DNA test. Because here is the truth that I had to sit with during those strange, suspended days. The DNA test was not just about Dara's baby. It was about what kind of story this was going to be. If Marcus was the father, then this was not a fling. This was not a moment of weakness. This was a sustained, deliberate, deeply considered betrayal that had produced a child, and that changes things. Not legally, necessarily, but morally. It changes the shape of what these two people had chosen to do. I needed to know the shape of it before I moved. On the 6th day after Paul came to my house, I called Marcus and told him we needed to talk. I kept my voice completely even. I told him I had been feeling disconnected and that I wanted us to sit down together that evening. He said, of course. He sounded warm. He sounded like a husband. I almost admired the performance, honestly. When he came home, I had dinner on the table. He talked about his day. And then, when the plates were cleared and there was nothing left to do, I slid Paul's folder across the table. I watched his face. I have cross-examined people for years. I have watched defendants try to construct an expression of innocence in real time, and I have learned to read the exact moment when the construction fails. Marcus lasted about 4 seconds before his face did something involuntary. That was all I needed to see. I will give him that. He tried the full sequence. Confusion, then denial, then minimization, then the pivot to, it didn't mean anything, which is the moment I stopped him entirely. I told him very quietly that I was not there to have a conversation about what it meant. I was there to inform him that I had already spoken to a solicitor, that the divorce petition was being prepared, and that given the duration of our marriage and the state of our finances, he should not expect to receive anything from me. I told him he had until the end of the week to arrange alternative accommodation. I told him that if he chose to contest anything, I would be representing my own interests with the full weight of my professional knowledge, and that I would encourage him to consider carefully whether that was a fight he wanted to have. He did not contest anything. Now, Dara. Dara is the harder part of this story. Not because I was softer with her, but because the loss of a sister is a different kind of loss than the loss of a husband. A husband I had chosen, a sister I had simply been given and had spent my whole life trying to love correctly, despite all the complications between us. And she had looked me in the eye at my own wedding and cried tears that she let me believe were for me. I did not call Dara. I did not go to her house. I wrote her a letter. A real, physical letter, because I am a woman who understands the weight of written words, and I wanted her to have something she could hold, something she could not delete or screenshot or misrepresent to anyone. The letter was 2 pages. It was not cruel. It was not hysterical. It said exactly what I knew, exactly what I had done about it, and exactly one thing I needed her to understand, that I did not hate her, but that I was finished. That there was no version of this story in which we found our way back to each other. That the door was closed, and I was the one closing it, and I was doing so with full clarity and zero ambiguity. I told her I hoped the baby was healthy. I told her I hoped she found a way to live with what she had done. And then I sealed the envelope and posted it, and never wrote to her again. The DNA test results came back 19 days after Paul first came to my kitchen. Marcus is the father. Paul filed for divorce the same week I did. 2 divorces, 1 family, 1 month of marriage, 1 pregnancy, 1 test result. The symmetry of it would almost be poetic if it weren't so completely devastating. Here is what happened to them, and I want to be precise, because precision is what I do. Marcus walked away from our marriage with what he came in with, which was not very much. He had no claim to my property, no claim to my savings, no claim to my professional income, and no leverage of any kind, because I had ensured that every financial decision made during our 30 days of marriage was documented and defensible. He moved into a flat share. He is now a man who cheated on his new wife with her pregnant sister and has nothing to show for any of it except a child he did not plan and a reputation in our professional and social circles that is, to put it diplomatically, complicated. Dara lost Paul, who was by all accounts a genuinely good man who loved her and had done nothing to deserve what she gave him in return. She is raising her child with a co-parenting arrangement that Paul, to his enormous credit, is honoring for the sake of the baby. She has lost her marriage, her sister, and a version of herself that she could look at without flinching. I do not know if she is happy. I do not check. And me? I went back to work. I took on more cases. I moved into a flat that is entirely mine, with a lease in my name and a key that only I have. I had 6 months of grief that I will not perform for anyone, because it was real and private and mine. I grieved the marriage I thought I was walking into. I grieved the sister I thought I had. I grieved the version of myself that was so happy she stopped paying attention. And then I stopped grieving, because I am not built for extended mourning, and because I had a career to maintain and a life to live that was not going to pause for two people who had already taken enough from me. People ask me sometimes, when I tell this story, whether I wish I had done something differently, whether I wish I had screamed or confronted them publicly, or made the whole thing messier and louder and more satisfying in the immediate sense. And my honest answer is no. Because the moment I saw those screenshots, I understood something that I think is the most important thing I can leave you with. Rage is loud, but it is also expensive. It costs you clarity. It costs you leverage. It costs you the clean, cold advantage of being the person in the room who already knows everything, while the other side thinks they are still safe. I let them feel safe for 6 days. And in those 6 days, I built a wall around everything I had worked for so that when the moment came, they could not touch a single thing that mattered. Marcus thought he had married a woman. He had actually married a barrister. And there is a difference. If you are sitting somewhere right now, reading your own version of this story, if you are holding your own folder of screenshots, your own set of impossible facts, I want you to hear me when I say this. You do not have to fall apart. You are allowed to go quiet. You are allowed to think before you move. The people who betrayed you are counting on your emotion to be louder than your strategy. Do not give them that. Build your case. And when you are ready, move with everything you have. 30 days. That is all they got of me. And it cost them everything.